Very good evening. You're watching Beyond the Headlines. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. You've listened to the headlines. Now listen to the facts. It's hot, and that is an understatement. The IMD has predicted a heat wave across the country for the next 5 days, with temperatures predicted to rise as high as 45 degrees. In parts of northwest India, temperatures may even go as high as 47 degrees. So let's break this down into numbers, because this is more than a story about weather. Since the beginning of March, there have been 26 heat wave days and 4 heat wave spells in the last 45 days. So how do you define a heat wave? A heat wave is officially declared when the maximum temperature is 40 degrees or more for plains, 37 degrees or more for coastal areas, and 30 degrees or more for hilly areas. All of these parameters have been clearly crossed. Delhi, for example, has recorded its second hottest April in 72 years. So what happens when there is a heat wave? Of course, there is a hit on health. There is a hit on wellness. You could have glaciers melting. But another big factor is that crop cycles get affected and hit. We may be facing a wheat shortage because of high temperatures in March, which is a crucial time. Many farmers have reported losses between 20 and 60% in wheat producing states as per CSE data. Of course, physical and mental well-being of people is also hit, and people get more sick. But is this heat wave, this current patch of heat waves, an isolated incident? Not at all. India has seen its hottest March in 122 years. This January, Mumbai saw its coldest winter in a decade. We have had 89 extreme rainfall events in 2021 versus 29 in 2017. And there are several more of these examples from around the country and, frankly speaking, around the world. The question is, are these isolated incidents, or is there a larger story that we are not seeing? Now, this is the part where we need to explore further. Here is what the IPCC, that's the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, says in a report it put out in February this year. And this is the specific part of the report that deals with India. They say that heat is rising to thresholds beyond human tolerance in India. 45 to 50 million people could be at risk by the end of the century if emissions continue at the same pace. And this is serious stuff. 35 million people in India could face annual coastal flooding, and among them, Mumbai is at high risk of severe flooding as sea levels may rise. Even so, linking the current heat wave to climate change is risky business, because, those who don't believe in climate change will say, where's the research to back this? So in the absence of that, we're today speaking to two very committed climate change activists. One is a veteran environmentalist, Sunita Narain, who is DG at the Center for Science and Environment, and the other is Licypriya Kangujam, all of 10. She's one of the youngest climate change activists in the world who's been pushing for change. We need to listen to both of those voices today. But first, I'm going to begin my conversation with Sunita Narain, who's DG, CSE, and an environmentalist. Ma'am, thank you so much for speaking with us today on the show. Now, we've been talking about the heat wave and all of the erratic weather patterns that we have been facing. But can we say that this is because of climate change?
No, absolutely. I think we do know the reasons to some extent. There is now more and more clarity that you can attribute, and I'm using the word very carefully because that's a scientific term now used to fingerprint a particular weather event and its relationship to climate change. And when it comes to this heat wave, there is now more and more evidence that there is a link to climate change. The reasons are manifold, and that's why it's more complicated. It is very clear that you have a very unusual weather event happening in the world today called the El Nino. El Nino is different from the El Nino, which is what affects our monsoon. El Nino is what happens in winter. It normally ends up with cooling the world's, the planet, and this is also in the Pacific Ocean currents. This year, it has been very, very prolonged, delayed, and it has actually meant that the earth is even more heated up than before. We then have a phenomena where the Western disturbance, which again is a weather pattern linked to the Arctic and to the Arctic jet currents, that is weakening. And there is now more evidence, and Indian scientists have been crying themselves hoarse to say that they feel that with climate change, the Western disturbances will become weaker over time, which is very, very bad news for us, because this is what brings those the rains, not monsoons, but the rains to us during this period. So the lack of rains has added to this heat wave. Now, these are global reasons. Then there is, of course, the local reasons. We are seeing microclimate change in our country. We are seeing more and more urbanization, less and less green cover. All that is exacerbating this intensification of the heat wave.
So, Mr. Narain, when you talk about global implications and global reasons, what it sounds like, perhaps, to people who are watching the show is, if it's all a global thing, so what can we really do about it? So that's my question to you. Can this be battled in some way, or is it an inevitability?
No, I think that's a very, very fair and a very good question, Tamanna. I think, there are two answers to this. The first answer is, let's be clear, the heat wave today is being exacerbated by our own mismanagement on the ground. So, which also tells us what can we do differently. So why is it being exacerbated? Because, as I said, if you cut down, if you reduce the green cover in your cities, if you build in a way that you're trapping the heat in your buildings, you're actually making sure that the heat wave gets even worse. I mean, today, if you look at the building architecture design in our cities, has been to do more and more concrete and more glass. Both of them trap heat. And this is actually making the greenhouse effect even worse in our homes. Now, that then leads us to the second part of this: what can we do? Clearly, we need to understand this heat is going to get worse. The heat is on, and it will get worse, which means that we better start understanding how do we plan against the heat islands of our cities? How do we plan for thermal comfort? We today build badly, then we put an expensive air conditioner, which requires more energy, which adds to greenhouse gas emissions. This has to stop. We have to build in a way that we can reduce the impact of the heat. And the worst thing that we need to discuss, Tamanna, is the other impacts of the heat, more on the water system, on the fact that we will have increasing demand for water as these heat waves go on, and the impact on our crops.
So, when you say this is not it and is going to get worse, and of course, we have all of these global projections, but in real terms that people can understand, how bad is it going to get for everyday living?
Impossible to answer this. I mean, I can give you a number, but it's not going to make sense to any of your viewers. Let me put it a different way. The global temperatures have gone up by 1.1 degrees centigrade from 1850 to now. That's the average global temperature increase today. The heat waves that we are seeing in our world, the linkages with climate change. Now, with all projections that we have today and the complete lack of serious action that we are seeing globally, there is every evidence that temperatures will go up to 3 degrees or even higher. Which means that, just consider this now. If you are seeing this heat today at 1.1 degree centigrade rise, what happens when the Earth average temperature goes up to 3 degrees. It is an existential threat. It is something that should worry us enormously because we may be able to cope today, but there is no way that we can cope as the temperatures increase to the levels that we are talking about.
You're talking about an existential threat, and I hope those who are watching are realizing how serious this is. We promised to go beyond the headline in this show, and this is why the heatwave headline is such an important one. But the immediate concern is a power crisis, because the heat wave and the power crisis are going hand in hand, right? It's because of the heat wave, in a sense, demand for power has gone up, there is a shortage, it's one of the factors, etc., etc. What are the kind of solutions you see in this direction? Because as it gets hotter, the demand for energy to keep us cooler will increase.
Every time we have a crisis, Tamanna, we say, but all the solutions are long-term and what do we do? But the fact is, we need to act, and we need to act at the scale that is needed. So let's look at 2 basic parts of this solution. The first is we need to reduce the use of energy in our country, even as there are millions in our country who need to increase their use of energy. This is the conundrum in India. People like you and me need to reduce our use of energy. The poor in India need to increase their use of energy. And we need to do this in a way that everybody has access to what is called today thermal comfort. Not air conditioning, but thermal comfort. Thermal comfort means that you have temperature levels which are comfortable in your homes. Now, this means for people like you and me, we need to talk about how we can do better demand side management. I'll give you a simple example. At the time when temperatures go up to about 28 degrees centigrade in our cities, and in Mumbai, of course, because you have something called the wet bulb phenomena, because humidity levels are high, the temperature, even at lower temperature, the discomfort kicks in. You need to add to your air conditioning needs. Now, if you built your buildings in a way that you had better ventilation, if you put a simple fan in your rooms instead of just an air conditioner, if you had better ventilation so that you had windows, if you had less glass facade, and you plan for insulation in your buildings, both on your walls and your roof, you reduced your need for air conditioning, you reduced your need for energy demand, it would go a long way. But we are still building bad. We have all the rules of ECBC, which is energy conservation, but we still have this mental phenomena that whatever is modern is a glitzy glass building which traps the heat, and the only way we can survive is by putting more and more air conditioners and double thickened glass. On the other hand, people need to increase their energy use. Now, this is where the coal question comes in. It is very clear India is locked into a coal economy right now. It is also very clear we need to move out of coal, both from an air pollution point of view, as well as from a climate point of view. But we can only do that if we can scale up both gas-based power plants and, more importantly, renewable energy.
You're talking about scaling up gas and renewable energy. I have I would say, less than half an hour ago, spoken to several experts on the power crisis, and they say, for now, increase thermal. We can't wait to bridge that gap till we increase renewable and shift to renewable. We, as a growing country, need the power now. So I want to ask you, are the current circumstances making it more difficult to go green when it comes to energy?
The current situation globally is really we're in a very bad time right now. On one hand, everybody knows climate change is happening. On the other hand, we know Europe is moving more to gas, moving out of Russian gas, but still now moving into Qatari gas as well as American gas. All this means that they will lock themselves further into fossil fuel. It worries me enormously when India talks the same language, because it is very clear We need to move out of coal for our own reasons. We need to move out of coal because coal is very bad for local air pollution. And it also tells me that we can do so. I mean, yes, we have a crisis today. We have very high energy needs. We have very high heat waves, which means that we need to increase the amount of energy that we can supply to people. But Tamanna, look at the gross inefficiency in our system. We buy energy today. The power plants manufacture energy at 1 rupee 50 paisa. They supply it at 8 rupees. Today, it is being supplied at 12 rupees on the open exchange. Now, is this because there is a scarcity? Is it because we are moving, because we need to be locked into coal, or because the system has become so inefficient? So please, let's not blame the energy crisis today and then run to coal again. Let's please understand we need some real hard structural changes in the way we supply energy, because we have to provide energy for all. It has to be affordable and it must be clean. And those objectives that the Prime Minister set for 2030 can and must be achieved. We should not allow this crisis to roll us back and for us to regress, arguing that, oh, heat is on, we need power, we need to dig more coal.
Unfortunately, that's perhaps something which will also happen. The demand to fill up that supply and that gap will grow. But I want to thank you so much, Sunita Narain, for joining us today. I know your television appearances have become rare, but I'm glad you decided and agreed to speak to us, because we truly believe this is an issue that requires that kind of focus. Now, before I move on to my next guest, I want to just tell our viewers why we have chosen to speak with Licypriya Kangujam today on the show. She's all of 10. She is an environmentalist, a climate change activist, but there was a reason that we wanted to speak with her. Because even as we talk about the future, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, some of us above a certain age, for us it seems like something theoretical. But it is something that the next generation will actually experience, and which is why it's crucial to get their point of view. And with that, I want to welcome Licypriya Kangujam, an environmentalist and climate change activist on the show. Licypriya, thank you so much for speaking with us here on Mirror Now. We're just so proud of what you do. Let me begin by asking you, when you hear that there's a heat wave right now, and for most kids, that means it's too hot perhaps to go out and play. When you hear about it, what comes to mind when you say that there is a heat wave going on right now?
Well, we are currently facing the extreme heat wave crisis all over the world, besides air pollution crisis too. And now the average temperature of India looks like 45 to 46 degrees Celsius, and last year it was recorded monthly average temperature of 37.5 degrees Celsius. Sudden increase of temperature of more than 7.5 degrees Celsius within a year is not a joke. These are all the impact of climate change. Our leaders need to take this seriously, but they are doing nothing to solve this crisis. You just see that heat waves are so dangerous in India. Even children can't move out of their homes. I'm very sad. I'm really worried about the school children and small babies. And governments announced that there will be holidays for 3 days, again for 5 days, and then again for 10 days. But this is not a solution. We don't want any temporary solution. We want is permanent solution. Sacrificing the lives of the millions of innocent children for the failures of our leaders is unacceptable at any cost. Instead of finding a long-term solutions, our leaders are just busy in blaming each other. They need to act now, otherwise, our future and our planet will be dying soon. And
Uh,
also, I just want to say
yeah.
that sitting in an AC room discussing about heat waves will not help to reduce the heat waves. They
Yeah.
must listen to the scientists, and we need urgent climate action now.
I'm sitting in an air-conditioned studio. I don't know if you are, Licypriya, but I just want to say that the aspect you brought about on impact of children and them having to miss school because it's too hot has not maybe struck everyone when they're discussing this as a news story. These are children who've anyway had 2 years of missing physical school because of COVID-19. There's one thing or the other, and now it's climate change. So according to you, what are the solutions?
So, well, climate change is not only for me or for you or for someone else. Climate change problem is for every single person living in this world. Each and every child living in this country, living in this world, are already the victims of climate change. That's why I'm fighting to save our planet and our future. I'm a good child who strongly believes that all the children can lead the change. I think you all heard in the news about Australia bushfire, California wildfire, Amazon rainforest fire, and Siberia forest fire. So millions of animals died, millions of trees has gone. I'm really very sad. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even eat my food. But why our leaders are not listening to our voice? This is real climate emergency. They must act now to save our planet and also our future. Children must tell their parents that they should walk if it's nearby, or they can use the bicycle, or uh, or we can use the public transport like buses for long distances. And please don't use single-use plastic at your home, and don't throw garbage or plastic on streets, oceans, rivers, seas, or any other places. Riding a bicycle means there will be zero traffic problems, zero carbon emissions, and zero noise pollutions. And it will save our valuable green spaces from development. And also, we need massive tree plantation all over the country,
Yeah.
because planting trees is the ultimate solution to fight the heat waves and also this climate crisis. So all our little things can make a huge difference.
You know, a lot of these things you've said, Licypriya, are so sensible. I hope that people are listening to this and want to make a change. But the challenge is that everyone wants some level of comfort, and it does impact the planet. So the challenge is on how do you do both? How do you stay comfortable? How do you grow larger as a country? And how do you also save the planet? So what is your message to people for this?
So today I would like to tell something to all the people living in this world. We don't know how to fix the ice melting in the Arctic, Antarctica, and the Himalayas. We don't know how to fix the sea level rising and submerging our beautiful islands. We don't know how to fix the heat waves killing the poor people every summer. We don't know how to fix the wildfires killing millions of animals and destroying millions of trees every year. We don't know how to fix the COVID-19 pandemic killing the humanity every day. We don't know how to fix the cyclones and typhoons devastating millions of homes every year. We don't know how to fix the locusts destroying all our crops. We don't know how to fix the habitats of the countless and voiceless animals now used for mining. We don't know how to fix the rivers and lakes now dry and dead. We don't know how to fix The forest now transformed into desert. If you don't know how to fix it, please stop destroying it. And also, we all know that we are facing a pandemic on one side and floods, droughts, heat waves, cyclones, locusts, forest fires, etc. on another side. Now, this is the time to wake up. This is the time to open up our eyes. This is the time to send your children and grandchildren to fight for their own survival and for their own future.
Licypriya, such wise words from someone so young, just all of 10, understanding something that a lot of us grown-ups haven't. I hope we can learn from you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking out the time. It's past your bedtime, but thank you for coming in and speaking to us today. Well, we'll take a very short break at this point, but there is another big story which is rocking the country today. It's a power crisis, and it's actually two sides of the same coin. The power crisis has gotten worse because of the heat wave, because demand for severe heat wave conditions coupled with a crippling power shortage continues to be a major cause of concern for people in several states. In the latest, the Power Ministry has revealed that the all-time high demand was touched today of 2.07 lakh megawatts. Earlier today, the issue got even political because the Delhi government raised an SOS in a letter to the centre saying that the national capital's daily power reserve is almost out. They've got just 1 day of coal supply. The Kejriwal government even warned against possible disruptions to key installations like the Delhi Metro and hospitals. Now, with the shortages of coal, power cuts, protests have also broken out across states against this. Union Coal Minister Prahlad Joshi spoke out today saying that the situation is not as dire.
The 11 units of Dadri and Punachar TPS are running with full capacity, and they are having the stock of around 2.3 lakh ton, and this stock is daily replenished daily basis. And also I would like to tell around around 73 million tons of stock coal companies are having the stock at their end, and 21.5 million ton the TPPs, that is thermal power plants, are having the stock, and there is no need for any panic, and we are monitoring the situation.
पूरे देश के अंदर कोयले की बहुत भयंकर कमी है, और उसका सबसे बड़ा कारण है कि जो रेलवे के रैक हैं, जो ट्रेन्स होती हैं, वो अवेलेबिलिटी कम है और कोयले की कमी भी है. तो उसकी वजह से पूरे देश के अंदर जितने भी पावर प्लांट्स हैं, उनके पास कोयले की बहुत गंभीर समस्या है. कोई बैकअप नहीं है, बिजली को स्टोर करके नहीं रखा जाता, बिजली डेली बनती है, और बिजली के लिए जैसे कोयले से अगर बिजली बनती है तो कोयले का बैकअप होना चाहिए, जो कि नॉर्मल सर्कमस्टेंसेस में 21 दिन से ज़्यादा होना चाहिए. आज काफ़ी सारे प्लांट्स के ऊपर 1 दिन से भी कम का कोयला बचा है.
To understand why we're in such a soup, I'm speaking now with Rajiv Agarwal, Secretary General of the Indian Captive Power Plants Association. Mr. Agarwal, thank you for speaking with us this evening on Beyond the Headlines. What I'm trying to figure out is that we know for several weeks now that coal supplies are running low. One of the reasons is that imported coal has become very expensive. So obviously, the companies don't want to, the thermal generating plants don't want to buy more expensive coal. Could anything have been done earlier to ensure that we don't come to the brink of this crisis?
See, unfortunately, this is a problem deep-rooted in the system. Now, this is nothing to do with what happened today, or there is a sudden increase in the power demand. Immediate crisis, what we are witnessing is having a genesis in last one whole year, where the stocks, all India stocks, were almost like 14.8 days, as against 30 days average, which is mandated. Now, the very purpose of maintaining this minimum stocks is so that in case of exigency, the stocks are available and there is no disruption in the power. Now, if we look at the figures in 2020, as on 1st April, it was almost 28.4 days. So it means in one whole year, the coal stocks were reduced. And when the power demand starts going up, there was nothing to cover.
No, so, but one minute, sir. If I'm not mistaken, the rule is that power plants need to have at least 24 days of coal stocks. They have been running at 7-8 days for several months now. So why is that gap there?
See, what has happened, as I'm trying to explain again, against 28 or 30 days inventories, which is mandatory for them to maintain, last year they reduced those inventory levels to the level of around 15 days or 14.8 days. Now, after that, as soon as there is an increase in the production or increase in the demand, or there is a reduction in coal production due to monsoon, the plants could not build up any inventories and they started further reducing the inventories because coal could not be moved or coal could not be produced. Now, in such a situation, the industry and captive power generators, their coal supplies by rake has been, trickling only. So virtually 25% of coal that goes to industries and power plants, captive power plants, out of that hardly 50% coal was moving to them. And in this process, these thermal power plants got almost 90% to 120% of their contracted demand. So despite getting this much high quantity of coal at the cost of industry, and what is happening, definitely this one has to look at what happened in the past.
No, so explain to me one more issue. Now, today, you've had a situation where state governments are saying that the central government has not ensured that there are enough coal stocks. Then you have the central government saying that we weren't told there was a requirement like this and there are enough coal stocks. What is the true picture, Mr. Agarwal?
See, one thing is sure that as a nation, we have sufficient stock. There is no denial to that. It is also a fact that coal movement is also restricted because of with the limited capacity in the railways. Because any system is normally designed for an average level of supplies. And I'll rather appreciate the government that even by curtailing some passenger trains in the coal-bearing areas, and they are trying to do more and more number of rakes. So as a government, they are trying to do what probably could be done. But the problem is that if state do not pay to the generating companies, and generating companies don't pay to the Coal India for indefinite period of time. So this whole system of power is again and again going to face this problem. Now, I'll just like to remind that in 2014, something very similar happened. 2017, something very similar happened when coal supplies, which were meant for captive power plants and industries, was curtailed drastically. And that whole supply was given to power plants so that they could build up the stocks which they had depleted. So this is the third such incidence happening after 2014, because before 2014, the capacity of private generation was quite low.
Okay, so we have a situation where the power plants are not able to produce because they have low coal stocks. We have enough coal stocks in the country, but it's not being transported well. Definitely, it's a lack of coordination, and that is what is also causing the mess. Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal, for joining us on the show today and shedding some light on this issue. Now, what is being done to ensure that coal is transported? The Indian Railways have been roped in because they are the major transporters of coal. The Indian Railways have now had to cancel around 16 express and passenger trains daily in the past couple of weeks to divert rakes to carry coal to power plants located across the country. The Railway Ministry has cancelled around 670 trips of passenger trains till May 24th. Sources said the national transporter has committed to provide 415 coal rakes daily, each carrying around 3,500 tons to meet the present demand. And let me go across to Abhishek, who has filed this report.
Is prevailing across the state of Maharashtra, and it will continue to prevail in the next 4 days as predicted by the IMD. And because of this heat wave, there will be a sudden rise in temperature. At the same time, there will be rise in the consumption as far as the entire state of Maharashtra and specifically Mumbai is concerned. This coal is majorly supplied through the wagons of Indian Railways, and that's the reason Indian Railways has cancelled many passenger trains so that large number of wagons can be used, and those tracks can be used to transport coal to respective thermal power plant, and the coal crisis can at some extent be lowered down, and the coal requirement can be met out. So, and also the Indian Railways is planning to further cancel many trains, which will also affect the movement of citizens across the country.
Some of the other big stories of the day: another case of custodial death has come to light in Tamil Nadu, where a man was taken for questioning regarding the sale of spurious liquor and allegedly died in police custody. Now the family has levelled damning allegations against the Tamil Nadu police in the alleged judicial death case. The victim's son says that he was offered 2 to 7 lakh rupees by the local DSP and an SI level cop for keeping quiet on his father's sudden death. The family has now demanded action against the cops.
என் பேர் திருமூர்த்தி. இறந்த தங்கமணியோட மூத்த பையன். எங்கள் அப்பாவை லாக்அப் டெத் பண்ணியிருக்காங்க. அது கேள்விப்பட்டு நான் முத நாள் வந்து நான் வந்து தூங்கலை. ரெண்டாவது நாளும் தூங்கலை. எதுக்காக அப்படின்னா பேரம் பேசுகிறாங்க. உங்கள் அப்பா இறந்ததை வெளியே யார்கிட்டையும் நீங்கள் சொல்லக்கூடாது அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு பேரம் பேசுகிறாங்க. 2 லட்சத்துலேருந்து 3 லட்சம் ஆச்சு, 3 லட்சத்துலேருந்து 4 லட்சம் ஆச்சு, 4 லட்சத்துலேருந்து 5 லட்சம் ஆச்சு, விடிங்கால 6 லட்சம் வரைக்கும் பேரம் பேசுகிறாங்க. பேரம் பேச வந்தது டிஎஸ்பி அண்ணாதுரை அவர் வந்திருந்தார். கூட தானிப்பாடியிலேருந்து முத்துக்குமார் சாமி எஸ்ஐ அவரும் வந்திருந்தாங்க. இன்னும் 4-5 பேர் கூட வந்திருந்தாங்க. எனக்கு பேர் தெரியல. விடிய பேசினாங்க. நாங்களை தூங்க விடலை. இதுதான் வந்து நடந்துடுச்சு. தங்கமணியை நீங்கள் வந்து எடுத்துகிட்டு போய் அடக்கம் பண்ணுங்க, போலீஸை பகைச்சிக்காதீங்க அப்படின்றது எங்களுக்கு வந்து சொல்கிறாங்க.
What will Mr. Stalin say when the son himself comes out and say that he was offered 7 lakh rupees bribe to keep quiet on his father's death? Isn't this a shameful episode? People in TN are losing confidence. The law and order situation is becoming a laughing stock. On many such incidences, wherein the head of the state, the CM, has to take the action to instill confidence in the people, all his announcements were only a mere eyewash. Vignesh, 10 days gone, they say yes, the case has been transferred to CBCID, but no such developments thereafter. A temple car which got electrocuted and 11 lives were lost. It was just a one-member commission for inquiry. That's what they say. And day for yesterday on custodial death, there is nothing happening in the state with respect to law and order to reinstill the confidence in the minds of the people. People in TN, a common man and civilian, are living in fear because of the breach in law and order by the keepers of the law themselves.
The elder son of a victim, Thangamani, who allegedly died while under judicial custody in Tiruvannamalai, has leveled some very serious allegations against the Tiruvannamalai police. Tirumurti, the elder son, has come out and told that the Tiruvannamalai police were trying to bribe their family into keeping mum about their father's death. In fact, he has told that several senior level police officers, including DSP Annadurai and SI Muthukumar, were ready to pay 6 to 7 lakhs to their family to be quiet about their father's death and to not make this issue into a big one. So these are some very serious allegations that's been leveled against the Tiruvannamalai police by the victim himself. These are like some of the very serious allegations that have come to the surface now. But meanwhile, on the other hand, the Tiruvannamalai police, they haven't reacted to these allegations so far. Even when we tried to contact some of the officials from the Tiruvannamalai police department, they refused to comment on the issue. So meanwhile, the family and relatives of Thangamani, they're refusing to take his body for cremation or burial. In fact, they're demanding justice for Thangamani, and they're sitting in the roads protesting that a fair and a thorough probe should be launched into this issue. They haven't got back his body for cremation or burial so far, and they are telling that they'll do it only if an assurance is provided from the government side or the police department's side that a fair and a thorough probe would be conducted into this issue. In fact, on the other hand, in the Tamil Nadu Assembly today, opposition leader Edappadi Palanisamy demanded a CBI inquiry into this issue. He also told that the Tamil Nadu government should provide a fair compensation to the family of Thangamani apart from launching a CBI inquiry into this issue.
And the Karnataka government seems to be dragging its feet in the fight against corruption. The post of Lokayukta, that's an independent body probing corruption in the state, has not seen an appointment in the last 3 months. Moreover, the Bommai government has also ordered several senior police officers to withdraw from the Lokayukta. This even as the contractor corruption case has rocked Karnataka a few weeks ago.
Half a dozen cabinet positions vacant. You can keep office of the Upalokayukta vacant, or few there may be delay in appointment of inquiry officers, but so far as the post of Lokayukta is concerned, in my humble opinion, it should not be delayed. Maybe on certain circumstances, for practical difficulties, there may be few days delay, but it is desirable and should be filled up early, because this is not a surprise thing.
From last 3 months, there is no Lokayukta chief. How can the Lokayukta work? There are also rumors a lot of officers, police officers have been withdrawn from the Lokayukta. This government says about honesty. How can they give a honest when a lot of corruption is going around? 40% commission have been charged for in the ministry. And there is an allegation that ministers are taking 40% commission also. So in this case, how can this government work? I am asking through you to the chief minister that why you are not appointing Lokayukta chief? Why you want to weaken the Lokayukta? Why are you withdrawing the officers? You have to, because it has come to the public domain now. If you want to give a clean and honest government, you should show your actions. You should appoint Lokayukta chief immediately, and also not withdraw the officers who have been appointed to the Lokayukta.
And the latest in the Patiala violence, Shiv Sena leader Harish Singla has been arrested in connection with a clash that broke out between two groups earlier today. This after a high-level meeting was chaired by the Punjab Chief Minister Bhagwant Mann. Following the clashes, a curfew was imposed in Punjab's Patiala area till 6 a.m. tomorrow amidst tensions. Remember, the clashes broke out after a procession was held by the group, which identifies itself as followers of Shiv Sena, and they came face-to-face with Sikh groups, which are believed to be pro-Khalistan. In fact, several videos shot at the time of the incident showed people raising slogans, pelting stones and brandishing swords, even while the police tried to control the mob. At least 4 people were reportedly injured in the violence.
इनकी आपस में झड़प हुई थी, तो उसको कंट्रोल करने के लिए एज पर मजिस्ट्रेट ऑर्डर्स जो हमारी तरफ से यूज़ ऑफ फोर्स बनती थी वो हमने करी।
सर ये कहा जा रहा है, एक मिनट, ये कहा जा रहा है कि मेमोरेंडम पहले भी दिया था, पहले भी कहा था पुलिस को एक्शन लेने के लिए। व्हाई द एक्शन हैज नॉट बीन टेकन बाय द पुलिस?
पुलिस की तरफ से सूटेबल एक्शन बिल्कुल लिया गया था। इनको ये भी बताया गया था कि मार्च बिल्कुल नहीं निकलेगा, मार्च नहीं निकाला जाएगा। उधर अगर आप पता करें तो उधर बंदे भी इकट्ठे नहीं हुए थे, कोई मार्च भी हमने नहीं निकलने दिया। सो जो हमने इनसे कमिटमेंट करी थी वो बिल्कुल पूरी हुई है। अगर हम कहें कि पुलिस की तरफ से कार्रवाई नहीं हुई, पुलिस की तरफ से डिप्लॉयमेंट थी, बिल्कुल भी मार्च नहीं निकलने दिया गया। कुछ अफवाहें थी जो इनके पास आई हैं, उन अफवाहों के बेसिस पे ये माहौल खराब हुआ।
तो प्रोसेशन की परमिशन नहीं दी गई थी?
प्रोसेशन की परमिशन उन्होंने कल अप्लाई करी थी हरीश सिंगला ने, बट वो कल रिफ्यूज़ कर दी गई थी और उनको बता दिया गया था कि आपका जो ये रूट मार्च है, खालिस्तान मुर्दाबाद मार्च, ये नहीं निकलेगा।
ये कार्रवाई अब किस पे की जा रही है सर? इधर
देखिए, ये तो जब बयान होंगे तब भी बता पाएंगे।
देखिए, बड़ा स्पष्ट है कि वहाँ पर प्रो खालिस्तानी एलिमेंट एक्टिव हो गया है। पिछले कुछ दिनों से लगातार वहाँ पर 8-10 दिनों से लगातार सोशल मीडिया पे बातचीत चल रही थी कि कुछ लोग कह रहे थे कि हम खालिस्तान के विरोध में एक यात्रा निकालेंगे और कुछ लोग कह रहे थे हम यात्रा निकालने देंगे। आज वहाँ पर एक गुट ने जो खालिस्तान के विरोध में उन्होंने यात्रा निकालने की कोशिश की, जो खालिस्तान के पक्षधर है उन्होंने वहाँ विरोध किया, पत्थरबाजी की, तलवारबाजी की। ये वहाँ पर दिखा था। ये उसका फेलियर है, उसका एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव फेलियर, उसका पुलिस का फेलियर, उसका लॉ और ना मेंटेन करने का फेलियर है। आम आदमी पार्टी की सरकार की जानकारी में था ये कि इस प्रकार का मामला लगातार चल रहा है, उसकी चिंता करनी चाहिए थी। और कुछ लोग यात्रा निकालना चाहते हैं, यहाँ विरोध में करे तो उनको ये सब प्रतिबंध करना चाहिए था। परंतु आम आदमी पार्टी सरकार तो बिजी है अपने प्रतिद्वंदियों के खिलाफ एक्शन लेने में। अब जो पंजाब की पुलिस का इस्तेमाल दिल्ली में ज़्यादा कर रही है।
These political forces that are in an attempt to derail the progressive government of Mr. Bhagwant Mann are unleashing these violent incidents. I want to make them, I want to make this known to them that they will not be spared, and each of them who is behind this unfortunate will be brought to book, will be brought to justice, and will be put behind bars.
Big news coming in Sri Lanka. Amidst the looming economic crisis and political impasse, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa has agreed to remove his older brother, Mahinda Rajapaksa, as Prime Minister. Reports have quoted a prominent lawmaker saying that the president has agreed to replace his older brother in a proposed interim government. Remember, Sri Lanka has been reeling under a severe economic crisis that eventually led to massive nationwide protests calling for the government's ouster. In fact, Mirror Now spoke exclusively to a Sri Lankan MP on this. Listen in.
Well, the fact that he has decided to remove his brother is also not certain. This has been claimed by some people and denied by the others. So I'm not sure that the story is really true. The seesaw continues now between the two brothers. The people have been agitating for both to be removed. The call for the president to be removed is clear and loud, and that has been echoing around the country for more than 3 weeks now. They also want all the Rajapaksas to go, primarily the president, and yes, certainly the prime minister and the rest of the family as well. The president seems to ignore the call for his removal and has been trying to rearrange the deck chairs, as it were, and trying to satisfy the people by sacking his brother's cabinet. Now that certainly will not go down well with the people.
And an interesting story that came up today, sticking to their live anywhere and work anywhere policy, the Airbnb chief, in a series of tweets, put out his vision for a fully remote workplace. Brian Chesky says an employee that works at Airbnb can work anywhere out of 170 countries. Let me go across to my colleague Raksha, who's breaking down that entire model of work from Airbnb. Raksha?
Yes, that's right. Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky, in a series of tweets earlier today, has shared that the company is allowing all of its employees to work remotely from anywhere in the world. According to Brian, the way forward is a very flexible system, because the past 2 years or plus of the pandemic has actually proven to be the most productive for Airbnb as a company. For two reasons. He said that first, his employees did a fabulous job in the past few years. And second, from a business perspective also, he believes that the way the company picked up during the pandemic was or recovered from the pandemic and wasn't reeling under pressure was because of a lot of employees of other companies who were renting out Airbnbs to be able to work remotely. He also feels that the way forward is a more flexible system, and if we compare his gutsy move to some other Silicon Valley companies, then biggies such as Apple and Google parent Alphabet are requesting all of their employees to come back to work slowly, whereas platforms such as Twitter and Facebook parent Facebook platforms is comfortable in a little bit of a hybrid model. What this move also tells us, and in Chesky's words, he does not want to limit a talent pool. So he believes that if there are bright future co-workers for him who are stuck in deep pockets of the world where they do not have a branch or an office, then it will really help him to have a very dynamic place of work. And we must appreciate his move, of course, and we can only hope that in India also a lot of new age companies opt for a bit more of a hybrid model, especially given the heat wave conditions and of course an on and off COVID wave going on.
Thank you so much for that, Raksha. What a great story to end the show for this week. That work from home model is definitely here to stay in some companies, but clearly not for everyone, as you can see. I'm right here. But on that note, thank you so much for watching Beyond the Headlines with us. We'll be back here, same time, same place on Monday. Stay tuned.